So many phones, but the question is, which one of these lasts the longest? Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and it has been a while since I've made one of these big battery comparisons, but I have been here hunched over this desk for, well, over 10 hours actually, babysitting these as I try to figure out which one has the best battery life. And if you do find this video helpful, then a little like and subscribe would be very much appreciated. Now, of course, I do wish I could include every phone in this test, although I don't think my desk would be really big enough. But we've got some of the big players here, including both S22 Ultra models. We've got the Exynos and the Snapdragon. We've also got the two best iPhones, along with the Pixel 6 Pro, the latest and greatest from Oppo, Realme, Xiaomi, and OnePlus. We've got the battery percentage at the top, we've got some specs below, and first thing we need to do is make sure that they're all set to the same brightness using this lux meter, including turning auto brightness off for consistency, which for the iPhone is actually a setting hidden in the accessibility display menu. Also, Wi-Fi only, fresh restart, background apps closed. We've got 100% battery health. All phones are set to their default display settings, which is basically 1080p and adaptive 120Hz. Plus, all the phones have been used for at least a few days, as battery life can improve over time as the software learns your usage patterns. Well, firstly, you can see that the iPhones do come out in front in terms of performance, and the Xiaomi 12 Pro actually comes in last for stability because it does get quite hot and therefore it throttles more. So already that made quite a dent in the battery lives, but let's jump over to a bit of Instagram, because for this test I want to make it as real world as possible. I appreciate I'm not fully outside using mobile data and actually using this in the streets, but there are so many variables then, and so going through social media, gaming, video recording, all that good stuff, hopefully this will give you a bit of an idea of what you can expect. Although of course, as always, your experience may vary, and also it comes down to what apps you use. Now, I do appreciate that all these phones support high refresh rates now, adaptive refresh rates in fact, with many of them supporting the latest LTPO2 technology, so they can go between 1 and 120 Hz based on your usage, which will save a bit of battery. Including the Realme GT2 Pro, which does support that, and this is actually the cheapest phone we have on test here. Okay, so we're about an hour and a half into this test, but one thing I do want to include, for the first time actually, is a standby mode test, because it is now after 9 o'clock at night, way past my bedtime, so let's see how much battery these lose overnight, or over about 12 hours. Interesting, look at that. So most phones lose between sort of 3, 4, 5% over 12 hours, although the iPhone 13 actually lost 9%, which does seem like a bit of an anomaly. I must admit, I don't use the 13 Pro as like my daily phone or anything, so there's no hidden background draining as far as I'm aware, so bit of an odd one that. But let's see if it can regain some ground. So let's jump into Temple Run 2, which is a sort of moderately demanding game, so we'll run that for sort of a good 15-20 minutes or so. And at around the 2-hour mark, of course not taking into account the 12-hour standby time because that would just throw off all the results, the iPhone 13 is actually currently in last place. Now switching over to TikTok, which I must admit I am now on, and if you don't follow me, I am Tom at the Tech Chap on TikTok, and I try to make some videos, but I'm pretty terrible at it. But if you haven't already, give me a follow there, and also on Instagram at the Tech Chap. But what is interesting is the different chips and the batteries that these phones have. So most of them use the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, except for the S22 Plus and the S22 Ultra here, which I have the Exynos 2200 versions. And also, of course, the two iPhones use the A15, and we've got Google's own Tensor Core chip in the Pixel. But in terms of the actual size of the battery, a lot of them are now 5,000 mAh. That's a really good size, except for the Xiaomi 12 Pro and also the S22 Plus, which are a bit smaller. And of course, the iPhones, which are the smallest on test, and maybe suggests why the 13 Pro isn't doing as well. But then again, the 13 Pro Max is in the lead with the second smallest battery, and that just goes a long way to show the optimizations of the hardware and the software that Apple can do. But whichever phone you use, I would definitely recommend putting a case on it, which is why I've teamed up with the lovely people over at Casetify, who are very kindly sponsoring this video, and where I designed these very snazzy looking new cases for my S22 Ultra, which are all nice and slim. They use recycled plastic, and they also have their unique Defensify antimicrobial coating, which actually eliminates 99% of bacteria. Not too shabby. But most importantly, they keep your phone safe. And I actually have a few options here. I've got this Turtle Bay designed Impact Crush case, as well as a custom leather case with the Tech Chap there naturally, and also my own personal Tom-inspired Impact Crush case. So let's try it out. Let's do a drop test with one of Casetify's Impact Crush cases. Shoulder height, straight onto tarmac. And look at that, not even a scratch. So keep your phone safe and show your colors with Casetify. Click the link below and bag yourself a fancy new case. So at this stage, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is clearly in the lead. It's a little bit concerning the Pixel 6 Pro not only has the slowest processor in terms of raw graphics performance and also one of the joint biggest batteries, but yet it is still falling behind in battery life. Again, surprisingly, the iPhone 13 Pro still isn't doing that well here, and there's a big gap between that and the Pro Max. The truth is, though, all these phones are very good in terms of battery life and will easily get you through a full day, but we are seeing some differences, and if you are a power user, which I must admit I am, and it's not something I ever want to worry about, that so far for me has been a reason I'm drawn to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The other thing to consider is that screen on time doesn't really tell you that much, because you can see I've got my Galaxy Fold 3 on the right hand side as my timer. That will actually win this test with the most battery, but even though we have the same amount of screen on time, it's just using the clock app. So really it comes down to what you're using, how you use your phone, and so comparing screen on times doesn't necessarily tell you how long your phone is going to last. Now, in my experience, it is benchmarks and then gaming and then 4K video recording that are the big three drainers of your battery outside of the display and general power consumption. So if you're not doing any of those three, then these phones will last a good deal longer. And so as we fly past the 6-hour mark, the Pixel 6 Pro is in dangerous territory, closely followed by the iPhone 13 Pro. The Galaxy S22s are pretty similar actually, remarkably. I am a bit concerned about this 13 Pro. We're at 20% here, but as you can see, this is running the latest 15.5 software, same as the 13 Pro Max. It is also a nearly new phone. I've barely used it, and we have 100% battery health, and there's nothing really unexpected that's draining the battery, so not quite sure why it's not doing very well here. And there we have it. At the 7-hour, 22-minute mark, we have our first casualty, and it is, to the surprise of no one really, the Pixel 6 Pro. Still a decent 7 hours 22, but it did come last in this test, and also came last in terms of performance. So I do love this phone. I love the camera, I love the software, even though it's a bit buggy, but it's not the best for battery life. But then, just over 20 minutes later, the Galaxy S22 Plus runs out of juice at 7 hours 44. This does have one of the smallest batteries on test, although a slightly smaller screen as well, so a decent showing, but still at the bottom of the pack. But here we still have 4 phones in dangerous territory, and it is the iPhone 13 Pro to go next at 7 hours 52. I do still think there was a bit of an anomaly with the standby time, so this could have lasted a bit longer, I think, if I were to repeat the whole test, but still, at nearly 8 hours, that is a very good time. But then we have the Galaxy S22 Ultra. This is the Exynos version, just shy of the 8-hour mark. But then there goes its brother, the Snapdragon S22 Ultra, which lasted 15 minutes longer. So not a great deal more, but there was a small difference there. Although I know a lot of people have different experiences, so I reckon it comes down to a bit of a chip lottery, particularly with the Exynos version, as to whether it is slightly better or slightly worse than the Snapdragon. But realistically, there's not a whole lot in it, and they'll both get you around 8 hours. And we are down to our last 5, until that is the Xiaomi 12 Pro bows out at 8 hours 26 minutes. So a good 10 minutes or so longer than the S22 Ultra, and not bad at all. Although, as we saw in the performance test, this guy does overheat, and also the camera isn't my favorite. So it's a solid flagship, but perhaps not my #1 choice currently. Then a good half an hour later, just shy of 9 hours, we have the Oppo Find X5 Pro, which actually performed better than I expected, or at least better than I thought it would, versus this guy, because in my comparison video, they're pretty neck and neck. So I'm not sure if this had a good day or this had a bad day, but either way, from this test at least, the Oppo lasts a little bit longer. And we have our final 3, and it is close between the OnePlus and the Realme, but there we go, the 10 Pro kicks the bucket at 9 hours 38, which is very impressive for one of the OnePlus, considering this is also one of the cheaper phones on test here. But look at that, the Realme GT2 Pro, 9 hours 42 minutes, which gives it the silver medal and is not far behind the iPhone 13 Pro Max, to be honest. This is a real surprise for Realme, and it is also the cheapest phone I've got here, so I am genuinely shocked by how good this is. But it does also mean the iPhone 13 Pro Max, unsurprisingly, has come out on top with 8% of its battery remaining. And in fact, it is the only phone to break the 10-hour mark, 10 hours, 25 minutes. And so these are the final results. The Pixel 6 Pro in last place. I thought the iPhone 13 Pro would do a little bit better. Definitely surprised how well the Realme and the OnePlus did, but of course the winner is the 13 Pro Max. The thing is though, love or hate iPhones, you have to give Apple credit for giving us a phone that is not only the most powerful with the A15 chip, but also despite having the second smallest battery in terms of the milliamp hour size, we are by quite some margin getting the best battery life with this. I must admit I had hoped the S22 Ultras would have given the iPhone a bit more of a run for its money. I mean, 8 hours, they're still very, very good, and of course they do physically have an S Pen built in alongside a 5000 mAh battery, but it's not really any better than last year's S21 Ultra. In some situations I found it's actually a little bit worse, so I had hoped that would be better, but still very good overall. As I mentioned at the start though, pretty much all these phones will get better with use over time as the AI and the software learn your pattern usage, so particularly I found with the Pixel, over weeks and months this will get a little bit better, but it is still a bit disappointing given the lower performance and the big battery size that it does come in last place. Come on Google, you are now using your own hardware, you are using your own software and building your own phones like Apple. I think you can do better. So I do hope that was useful. If you've got any other comments or if you've got any other phones you'd like me to include in my next battery test and any changes you'd like me to make, let me know below. And I will see you next time right here on the Tech Chat. Thanks for watching. Oh, and don't forget to check out Casetify. Click the link below and bag yourself a fancy new case.